lives.
How do we become better at riding? That's what we want to know. We want to know, are we doing it right? Her partner leaned in and said to her while he was on top of her, "Do you want your book?"
Oh my God.
That's pretty bad.
Oh, that's depressing.
I presume men are wanking off more than women.
I think that's probably, quite
fair assumption?
accurate. Yeah, I think
A fair assumption. Okay, it's here. It's time. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm Jennifer Zamparelli and welcome to Just Between Us, a new podcast from the Irish Independent where we chat about life, we talk about love, we chat about sex and everything messy in between. Now, we all talk about our best selves. So when was the last time you thought about being your best self sexually? Well, Dr. Caroline West is here to chat about confidence and curiosity and letting go of shame in the bedroom. Dr. Caroline West, sex educator, author, you're very welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for giving us your time because you are a very busy lady.
I know. I've forgotten how to rest, I think.
You have a lot going on.
There's a lot of sex to talk about.
Yes, that's why you're here. I love it. Can I ask about you for a second? Because I'm always very interested in how people got to where they are. How did you become a sex educator? Where did that all start?
Yeah, a long time ago, back in my bedroom as a kid. And I used to sneak upstairs to watch Eurotrash as a kid. So if anyone can remember that, it was the best show ever. And it was just so like bright and colourful and silly and, looking at all these weird and wonderful things that people were doing about sex, mainly Germans. They seem to have quite the wild side to them. And it was just not shameful. It was just like, oh yeah, we're doing this today on a Wednesday. We're just going to, paint some art with our body fluids. And it was like, okay. And then I'd look to like Irish society and be like, sex is the worst thing that you could ever do. You could get locked up in a laundry, you could end up in a mother and baby home. You'd be shipped off to England. And I was like, why? Sex seems good over here. Why is it so bad over here? And so that kind of power dynamic and control of sex was really interesting. And then I started stealing my mum's like Take a Break magazines and all those things. And they always had an undercover reporter who'd go to maybe a sex club or something. And they'd always start going, oh, it seems okay. They'd interview a few people and then end it by going, yeah, but I'm not sure they're really happy or, oh, it's not for me. And I was like, again, the judgment is coming in. Like, why are we so bothered about this? So it just kind of spanned from there really of like that difference between why are we so weird about it and also why is sex weird. So the joy of studying sex is there's always something new. Like you can never know it all because we do some really weird and wonderful things with our bodies and with our desires. Like even during COVID, there was COVID erotica being made, COVID porn, all this like with the masks and hazmats and everything on. So it's a fascinating area, but you can also tell so much. You can tell like history, science, technology, psychology, every aspect of human society you can look at through the world of sex. So
I was not expecting you to say Eurotrash was your inspiration for becoming a sex educator. So that's a first. So thanks for sharing that. And I totally get it because I remember that show being just so risque and different and watching it going, oh my God, I'm shameful just watching it, but it's so fun. It is so fun. There's definitely not sex on the curriculum in UCD or DCU or any of these universities. So where did you study?
There actually is now in DCU. So I did a master's in sexuality studies way back in 2011. I think I was in the second year of it. And I just felt like I was home. I was like, this is brilliant. I can write about sex all the time. We learn about it from books, TV, film, porn. And then I noticed like the way we talked about porn was kind of the same. It was very closed off. We'd only hear from generally anti-porn campaigners, things like that. And I was like, why aren't we talking to the people actually doing the job? That seems really unethical to me. So then I found myself in the bizarre position of doing a PhD in porn, talking to female porn performers. So my research trip, I went to the Porn Awards in Vegas, which was just
wild.
Oh my God. It was just, I'm probably still processing it. It was like thousands of people there and like they'd have awards for like, this is the best ass, this is the best threesome scene, and everyone taking it seriously like, oh yeah, well done. That was a great scene there. And like the fashion range from like pretty much nothing to like full ball gowns, and every facet of humanity was there. So it was really interesting. And again, it comes back down to power and control. And, you know, I talked to lots of the attendees, and some of them were there with their partners. Some were like sneaking off from work for a few hours to go. So there's like all aspects of humanity there. And yeah, really interesting to see, to kind of challenge some of those myths and stereotypes we have about things like porn, but also to see like the stigma and violence we as a society put on sex.
I really want to get into porn later on in the chat, because I want to talk to you about ethical porn and your thoughts on that. But we are here to talk about your best self sexually. Okay. So first of all, is it possible? What does that sentence mean to you?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think it's a huge question, because sex is, again, such a huge topic, and it impacts so many aspects of our lives.
How do we become better at riding? That's what we want to know. We want to know, you know, are we doing it right? How do we get better? Because I do find there's so much noise, and rightly so, about mental health. There's so much noise about physical health, and you know, we're very comfortable talking about our step count and what we can lift in the gym, but we don't really talk about our sexual health, and health not as in, you know, health is in, you know, our activities in the bedroom.
Our wellness.
Our wellness, because it's all kind of intertwined anyway.
Completely. And I think sexual wellness and being your best self is acknowledging that other people have put these ideas in your head about what good sex is supposed to be, what's the right kind of sex. And in Ireland for years, that was, you know, heterosexual sex in marriage for procreation. It wasn't, you know, living on the wild side or anything like that. So, you know, figuring out what works for you, it is a process. It is unpacking all those messages that you're kind of brought up with. And then the good thing about sex, because it's so vast, you get to decide what works for you. So, you know, if you're into this, you can try that. If you're into that, you can try it. But the key word there is really homework. So it's like anything, you know, you can't be good at driving by just watching some films. You might not be good at sex by just watching some films. You have to actually put the work in and think about, well, what do I want? What am I curious about? And learn. So there's no maths involved.
This is
a kind of homework.
Would you say this is the biggest misconception with sexual health, is that you should automatically know how to do it, and you should automatically know how to turn someone on?
Yeah.
So how do we become good at that? What is the first step of exploring that?
I think communication.
Okay.
And communication.
I knew you were going to say that.
I know, because it is. It's so true. Like, we expect people to be mind readers because we might see it in porn. There's very little dialogue in porn apart from, I'm here to fix your washing machine or something like that.
Yeah.
But we don't, no one says, do you like this? Do you like this? It's just automatic and perfect and gymnastic and all these kind of things. Whereas real life, it's not like that. And when we think of something that's bad sex, it's probably because we're not communicating. We're lying there going, geez, this is terrible. Like, what time will I pick the kids up from school, or what to do? And the other person's probably going, I'm doing a great job. But, you know, we have to talk to each other and have that compassion, I think, that maybe both people are anxious, nervous, vulnerable, but talking to each other not only helps you explore things like consent, but it helps you get better and say, I really like that, but maybe left a bit, or, you know, maybe try this and maybe a bit faster, a bit slower, all those kind of things. And your partner will be so grateful.
It is a tricky one to get over. And it's so important, because if you're in a new relationship, I think there's, you don't want to offend anybody or embarrass them. And if you're in a long-term relationship, it could be you don't want to hurt their feelings, or like, why haven't you said this before? And I totally get that about doing the shopping list. I just want to tell you the story really quickly because it's so good. I have a friend, and she would just go through the motions on a regular basis and never really spoke up. At one point, her partner leaned in and said to her while he was on top of her, "Do you want your book?"
Oh my God.
That's pretty bad.
Oh, that's depressing.
Isn't that so sad?
That's depressing
so
for both
funny
sides.
as well.
Yeah. Also probably so common. At least he was brave enough to maybe say it out loud.
Exactly. So sometimes I feel like our couples can you start talking, like even if you're 10 years into your relationship, like
absolutely. Yeah. It's like, look, we don't get good sex ed, so why would we know? So if we start with that basis of we're trying to figure this out together, it's teamwork, so it's like,
how do you start that conversation? That's what I want to know.
I think the easiest way is not when you're on top of someone in bed, like your friend. I think maybe go out for a walk so you don't have to look at each other. You can look ahead, maybe over dinner, something that kind of takes the pressure off. And then talk to each other and say, the compliment sandwich comes in very handy here. So that's when you're like, oh, I love when you do this. And then you have your suggestion in the middle. And then you end with another compliment of, oh, I like this thing too. So have some solutions. Maybe go, let's explore some audio erotica, or, oh, my friend said she tried this. It's really great. Do you want to try it? Or I saw this new product come on the market. Let's try it that way. So a let's try it approach is really soft and gentle rather than saying, I hate our sex life. It doesn't work. I'm not happy, So view it as like a positive step forward that you're taking together, because it is.
Okay. Let's talk toys and how can you introduce them into the bedroom without your partner feeling they're being replaced by a vibrator?
Yeah. Well, the vibrator doesn't make the bed or the cup of tea after sex.
Very
time.
true.
So maybe when the sex robots come a bit cheaper, maybe that could be
maybe then.
Yeah. So sex toys are not competition. They're collaborators, and their job is to give people pleasure. And that's not a bad thing. And they're sex toys for everybody, regardless of what genitalia they're working with. So maybe get one for each of you and then discover, oh, I like this or I like this. So maybe sit down, get a glass of wine, prepare to be awkward. That's okay. And browse some online and say, what about this? What about this? Because there's so many types out there, and some are for internal stimulation, some for external, sometimes both. And, people like different things and different sensations. So talk to each other rather than just going and buying the first one that you see, or go to a sex shop together if there's still bricks and mortar sex shops in your areas, and just have a giggle and go, what about this? And what about this? And even that emotional bond of chatting together will help your sex life too, and your relationship, because you're talking about pleasing each other. It's always a good thing. Yeah.
Just don't open those Christmas presents in front of the family, because that might be a bit awkward for absolutely everyone. Okay, Caroline, let's talk porn. Friend, foe, or just a really unreliable teacher?
A bit of everything all at once. It's good for some people, not for others. The problem with a lot of mainstream porn is it's very one-sided. It's generally only the man who's getting all the pleasure. And it's very formulaic. It's like you do this and then you do this and then you do this and then the man has an orgasm. Where's the female pleasure in it? She's lucky if there's any hands or mouths being used. Really, it's all about penetration for hours and hours. And for some people, that's great. For others, that's the most boring thing in the world. So it doesn't really show that full breadth of sexuality that's out there. So there are different options like ethical porn or feminist porn. And these show a whole range of things. I remember seeing one before where the guy actually lost his erection, and that was the first time I'd seen it on camera. And the girl was like, do you want to stop? And he's like, no, I'm going to do other things. And then it magically came back later on, and I was like, oh my gosh, like that's
real life.
Yeah. And maybe the cat walks in halfway through, or
the dog has ruined my sex life. I'm just going to put that on tape right now, because you need to get the pets out of the bedroom, right?
I have 2 sausage dogs. I know what you mean. They're very loud. But it kind of just shows there's so many different ways out there, to explore your body. And it doesn't have to be, okay, we do this and then we do this and then we do this. But it also doesn't explore things like consent or talking during it. It's all this like seamless mind reader kind of action. And then people think, oh, consent is awkward. And it's not. If someone comes up to you and they're whispering in your ear, hey, do you want me to touch your whatever? That can be the hottest thing in the world. And it's consent, but also gives the other person a chance to go, no, but you can touch here, or, oh no, but let's do this. So it's communication. And also a lot of that kind of porn shows like the bloopers, which is kind of a very pun-loaded word in sex. But like things like where you fall off the bed or your body makes awkward noises or it doesn't all go right. And it's like, that's what real sex is. It's messy, it's loud. If you're living at home, your mum might knock on the door, all those awkward moments.
Imagine if the nuns, when they rolled out the TV in the classroom in the 80s, played, some ethical porn, we'd be a lot more educated, I think, wouldn't we?
We would. There'd be a lot of ethical considerations in that. But yeah, I think like if people were more aware of it rather than going to the first search that comes up on Google, it's just not great that way. But there's lots of user-generated porn now. We have OnlyFans. We have user-generated audio erotica. There's lots of Dublin creators on there. So they're in demand for their accents as well. So there's lots of different ways to find inspiration rather than just visual. You can listen to it, you can make it, you can write it, you can just let your imagination go wild. I know someone who's written a book about dinosaur erotica. I don't know who's having sex with who in that situation, but there's something out there for everyone.
Okay, so the chat is very important. Okay, yes. So we want to better ourselves sexually in a relationship, or if you're single. Let's talk about in a relationship first. Communication is key. What about a chat with yourself to find out? I do find that you don't really find out what you like till really later on in life because you don't give yourself permission to find out.
Absolutely.
And we need to talk about masturbation.
I mean, I spend quite a lot of my life talking about this, so yeah, why not? It's really good for your health. First of all, it helps you sleep, helps your blood pressure, helps your stress levels. So from that perspective, it's really great. But it also helps you get to know what your body likes, but also being comfortable with your body. And then once you know yourself a bit better, you can kind of say then to your other person, oh, I like it like this, or actually those toys don't work for me, but this one does instead. But it helps you really kind of connect with yourself without that pressure, without someone else being there, without having to perform. So that's the difference between performative sex and then authentic sexuality. So performative sex is, oh, I got to look sexy, I got to hide the bumps, I got to hide all the lumps.
Because we do have hang-ups, don't we?
All of us. That, yeah. And, for people my age who grew up in like Cosmopolitan, where all the articles were like, how to give him pleasure. And even at I was sneaking those at 13, 14. I didn't know what a kiss was. I hadn't kissed anyone, but I knew for a blowjob you had to have an ice cube and champagne. And I was like, where am I even going to get champagne as a 14-year-old?
Wow.
And completely non-sexually active, but I knew that was it. And I knew I had to hide my bingo wings, which was a term I learned from those magazines. So it was all about looking sexy, but not actually really in touch with your own pleasure. So before authentic sexuality then is kind of saying it is a mutual experience. Like, what does pleasure mean to me?
Yeah.
And that's really hard for a lot of people, especially women as well, because, then we're judged. We're like, oh, you're a slut if you're into sex, and whereas men are viewed as legends. But it's also difficult if you've had maybe negative experiences or experiences of sexual violence. It's really hard to kind of connect with yourself in that way. So spending time with yourself takes a lot of that pressure away and allows you to be judgment free. You can sit there with greasy hair, watching EastEnders, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be candles and bats and all that kind of thing.
That does help though.
It does help. Yeah, it's probably sexier than EastEnders.
Yeah.
But whatever you're into. But having that time to go, do you know what? I deserve
This is
pleasure.
what I like.
Yeah, and pleasure is not a dirty word.
No, absolutely not. Why do men do it more than women? Is that now? Sorry, that's a massive assumption. But I, knowing myself and people around me and women in my life, I would presume, and the men I know, I would presume, men are wanking off more than women.
I think that's probably quite
fair assumption.
Accurate. Yeah, I think
a fair assumption.
Yeah, I mean, it starts off with the obvious of they can see themselves a lot easier. So from kids, they're more aware of changes and stuff. Whereas for women, we'd often name that as our private parts.
Yeah,
and you're like, you name every other part of your body, your elbow, your knee, but we're like, no, it's private parts, or your flower, or whatever nickname you've kind of given to it. So we don't even connect with it on that kind of conscious level sometimes. But I think because so much porn just shows women just magically having these orgasms through tons of penetration, which actually doesn't work for a lot of people. Like
a huge percentage of women though, right?
Huge. I think it's something, the stats kind of vary, but like up to maybe 70% sometimes. And like the clitoris just doesn't exist in a lot of mainstream porn. And it's like this tiny little area is one of the most magic things in the world. And we're not showing people how to do it. So a lot of people kind of think that it should be as quick as a man's orgasm, which is a lot less complicated, but a lot less satisfying in some ways, because women can have tons of different types of orgasms. They can have multiple orgasms, whereas men kind of get one and then they're done for a little bit, whereas women can just keep going and going and going if you're in touch with yourself.
So knowing yourself and what you like is imperative to improve your sexual well-being.
Completely. And feeling confident then to speak up about that is the second part of that puzzle, because if you're having a great time by yourself, but it's not translating into partnered sex, then that can lead to a lot of frustration. And
on both parts.
On both parts. And it's like men get the same rubbish sex education we do. And if they're watching porn, they're not really learning how to pleasure a woman. They're just learning how to put their penis inside her.
Oh, we have to educate them as well.
Absolutely. Like,
exhausting, Caroline.
They don't have those body parts. How would they magically know that? So yes, it absolutely is exhausting. But it's a fun process to try once you're trying.
Can we talk about libido? Because it does vary. And I know women of a certain age have been saying that it can fall off a cliff.
Yeah.
Can we do anything about that? Is there a supplement for that? A vitamin? Anything?
Hormones. And I think a lot of women, the uncomfortable truth is a lot of our libido is because maybe our partners aren't really that great and they haven't really invested that much time in our pleasures. So
it's their fault. I was just going to say that. I've been saying that for years.
Well, like, why would you? If the sex is always boring and it's always about their pleasure, why would you want to? You know, and if you're deciding to stay, say, in that marriage for life and your husband doesn't care about your pleasure, you wouldn't really miss it if it was gone then.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes that's really important to take into account. That's the uncomfortable truth. But also things like medication can impact our libido, like SSRIs, which are like antidepressant medication, can inhibit your ability to even have an orgasm or even want to as well. So all those things, and then menopause, the lifelong saga of perimenopause and menopause, that all impacts things as well. But a lot of the time, it's down to education and us feeling like we can't tap into that side of ourselves. And even now, you know, like women in their 40s and 50s, if we're dating and we're seeing like, you know, younger men, it's like, oh, your cougar era. It's kind of fetishized somehow as well. Or else, you know, if you're dating in that era and you're trying to meet other people, they're like, oh, you're older, you know everything, so you can teach me. And you're like, okay. To quote Dua Lipa, training season is over. So yeah, bring it to the table and talk about it. But also we have a thing called responsive desire. And that's generally more of a female thing where it's like, I'm not instantly horny and I need a little bit of warming up and I'm not in the mood. But maybe if your partner spends some time getting you in the mood, then you're like, oh, actually, yeah, I wouldn't mind a little roll in the hay. But that part is often missing because we think of foreplay like, okay, I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do this and then we're going to move on to the main event and everything's about the main event. And that, again, it doesn't work for a lot of women because if they're not having orgasms that way, it just doesn't all add up. So then you kind of internalize that and think there's something wrong with me, when really it might be your hormones, a terrible partner, or a terrible technique, and all those kind of things, or medication. So there's lots at play. And then things like shame and stigma as well. And like, I remember talking to this one girl before and she could have orgasms, but she'd always cover her face with a pillow because she wouldn't let her partner see her sex face. And I was like, your sex face is probably the same as your gym face, you know, if you're lifting a heavy weight or something like that. But it just made me feel so sad that like that intimate moment, she was like, I can't, I'm so ashamed, while another person is inside her body. And it just made me feel really sad, you know, and I get it. It's totally understandable, but it's just really sad because you can't let go then.
It is very sad. And now I will not be able to look at anybody in the gym lifting weights without thinking that their gym face is their sex face.
I mean, there's only so many expressions we can.
That's very true. That is very true. Yeah. Okay, let's talk dating. Okay, so if I'm out there, I'm dating 2025, it's kind of, I'm so glad I'm married. I'm very happily married, by the way. But I would absolutely I wouldn't know where to start in the dating world right now. It is just seems to be so grim.
It's so grim.
To get the right, just to get a decent ride out there, you have to jump through hoops and put up with a lot of shit.
Absolutely. And as someone recently single and going back on dating apps, oh my God, it's grim. One of the first messages I got from someone was, "Hi, how are you?" Okay, they're doing all right so far. "Are you into threesomes?" I was like, just, oh my God. Like, and then another person, I said, I made the first move and I said, "Oh, you have a really nice smile." He's like, "Thanks, I really like your," well, can I say tits here? Perfect. And I was like, and I even said, "Why would you think that would work?" And he's like, they weren't exposed or anything, just regular pictures. And he's like, "No, I can imagine them." And I was like, you just, block. It's so
soul destroying.
It is. And then we also see, I'm in all those "Are We Dating the Same Guy" groups, and it's just misery. And it's people who have horrific histories of domestic and sexual violence, or lots of drug issues out there at the moment, because there's a huge cocaine epidemic out there. And people just sharing their horrific experiences. And it doesn't even have to be that bad. It's things like ghosting, or the second line that they say to you is a very sexual one. And so
what you're telling me is just pleasure yourself. If you want to have your best sexual self and you're single, it's probably easier just to go at it yourself, because it's a nightmare out there. Is there any hope for any singletons out there? What would you suggest?
I think there's a real turn away. Like, the apps were great, for a long time. They had their moments, but something changed kind of post-pandemic. I think we lost a lot of empathy and learning how to interact with each other. Well, people are going back old school. There's lots of like singles meetups and bars. There's singles dating. There's singles activity making. There's all those kind of things. And people are really signing up to those in their droves again, because they're like, at least that way they probably won't ask me if I want a threesome in the first sentence that they say to me. So the bar is low. Or, it gives you a little bit more time to build up that conversation with people, rather than talking to someone online for a week and then you meet them and then you're like, this is just a waste of my time. There's nothing there. So I think bearing that in mind, that it's not just you, it's not a personal thing. It's hard out there for absolutely everyone, to the point where there's even a new term now. It's called heterofatalism. And it's women who've just essentially decided to give up on dating because the options are just so grim that they're like, "Do you know what? I can live without this at the moment." So, and then men are getting frustrated and going, "Why are women dating us?" And it's like, because you're not acting like Pedro Pascal.
I hope you're listening. I really hope they're listening, because there's so many lovely people out there. You could all be riding and dating and riding, we'll put it that way first, and having a great time, but you're ruining it.
No.
Can we bust a few myths? What are the biggest bits of nonsense that you want to dispel?
Oh, there's so many. Where do I start? First, that sex is a bad thing and says anything bad about your character or your body count is bad. None of that matters. It's just how you treat each other with respect. That's really the key kind of point, rather than how many people you've slept with or anything like that. The second one, we've kind of already covered, that sex toys are a good thing. They're a little extra
collaborative,
bonus.
You said.
Collaborative.
Very important.
Teamwork. It's all there. And then I think like maybe the third one is that like good relationships are really hard. And I think we see that all the time. Marriage is hard work and it's hard to keep a relationship going. But it's not if you're treating each other with respect and kindness and love and putting each other first and solving issues as they come up. I think that's really important. And you often see those couples who are like 80 or 90 and they're like, "What's the secret of a long-term relationship?" And they're like, "Oh, we never argue." That's not true. You're going to get pissed off with your partner from time to time, because they're human and they're going to annoy you by the way they slurp or the way they breathe or the way they do the laundry or whatever. But you have to talk about it and then work through it together, rather than let it fester and simmer. So arguments are okay once they're still respectful. They can turn into abusive behavior fairly quickly. But, if you're not feeling those red flags, then it's normal and healthy to argue as well.
And what if somebody out there is thinking, "I've just lost my sexual desire. I've no time. I've no interest in having sex." What would you say to them?
I'd say that's perfectly valid. And there's no pressure to have sex. You know, we don't have to have it to survive, well, technically as a species, but in our day-to-day life. But maybe try something like, if you're too busy, pop in some earphones and listen to some audio erotica on the bus, or you know, while you're doing the housework or something, and actually you might find, oh, that's really nice, actually. And
you mentioned the main event. It doesn't always have to be about the main event. We can focus on kissing and cuddling and foreplay and all that other lovely stuff, which is the same. That doesn't always have to end on the main event.
Absolutely. And people think it's like bells and whistles. And sometimes you're like, geez, I'm just exhausted. Like, I haven't the mood or the energy for a big 4-hour marathon or anything like that. But again, cuddling on the
4 hours, Jesus, you're having great sex.
Sausage dogs are getting in the way of that. Like, but like, you know, people think it is all that, and it has to be wild, and you have to introduce props, and you know, you're too vanilla if you don't have a whole wardrobe full of toys and all this kind of thing. No, sex is what you make of it, and if you want it to be vanilla, happy days, you know. So again, talking to each other, exploring it for yourself, but also not putting that time pressure on. You know, it's not something you have to solve straight away. It can be a lifetime journey for many people, and lots of people don't discover their sex life or their true sexual desires till later in life, because we are more confident. We don't really care that we have a stretch mark or two, or we don't really care what people think of us. And that's why a lot of older women are more attractive to men in their 20s as well, because if you remember being in your 20s, it's just an anxiety-ridden mess of a time. You're just like, and trying to figure out your identity. Whereas women that bit older are a lot more confident, less likely to put up with nonsense. And that's really attractive to a lot of people. So maybe turn that attraction inwards and highlight your own strengths and awesomeness, and kind of go, this is my journey. And other people getting involved are nice little cherries on top, but like, it's yours to control and own and to express how you want to.
I have to ask you this question, because I know there will be a lot of women listening to this who may have experienced a really bad sexual experience or sexual violence and find it really difficult to get into that space again. Absolutely. What would your advice be for them?
Yeah, be kind to yourself. As a survivor myself, it's really hard, and you will go through that performative aspect because it's too scary to get vulnerable with another person, and it messes up your self-esteem, your life, everything. It messes up absolutely everything about you. And there's plenty of people who are like, that's too painful to deal with. I'll just never have sex again. Yeah. And that's absolutely fine. Look, we all manage in lots of different ways. But therapy is an amazing thing. And also maybe spending that time on your own too, so that you're not there with another person. It is nice and safe. And then understanding, kind of revisiting consent. You know, maybe if those experiences happened in your younger years, we have a better understanding of consent now and what boundaries are, and our expectations for what a sexual encounter should be like. And you can have amazing sex after that. I might be personal proof of that, but you know, it comes in handy. But time and kindness. So, well, not just time. Time helps, but time putting in the work and kindness to yourself, and you know, maybe thinking about the kind of sex that actually is satisfying. Is it a one night stand, or do you want to preserve that for a long-term relationship? So if you're the long-term relationship type, hooking up with a stranger in a toilet is probably not going to work for you. So maybe try and not have that kind of sex, because you're just going to walk away feeling a bit more rubbish about yourself. Yeah.
Okay, and for anyone listening who really wants to up their game, you mentioned a couple of resources there. Any more resources that people can tap into on the internet that, you know, ethical porn, you mentioned audio that's out there for people to have a listen or look at?
There's so many. You can even buy erotic books in like Tesco's now, the checkouts. There's Quinn app, which is a great audio erotic app to listen to. Sexualwellbeing.ie is great. It's an Irish website. And
that's right, yeah.
Everything on there. And you can order your free STI tests from there too. So they send them out to you in the post. And then we have this great sex educator in Ireland called Grace Alice O'Shea. She wrote a book called Sex Educated. And it's aimed at younger people, so it covers the basics. But like, a lot of us didn't get the basics.
What age are we talking?
I think it's more like late school, teen kind of area. But again, if you're 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s and you didn't have that education.
And you don't know where a clit is, maybe you take up the book.
And like men, you know, they don't have that anatomy and they don't see it represented in porn. So maybe go back to the basics and say, it's okay to start this. And then maybe treat yourself to some toys. We have the fabulous sex shop in Ireland, which is all like body safe, ungendered toys that don't all look like gigantic penises, because that's unappealing to lots of people. So figure out what works for you. Have a little browse around on the internet. There's lots, if you type in ethical porn or feminist porn, if that's what you want to watch, there's loads of those out there. Crash Pad series has loads of gender diverse people, but also lots of weird and wonderful ways to have sex that might make you go, oh, didn't know you could do that. Why am I turned on? Let's have a go with that. And so all those little things. So you can take inspiration from everywhere. There's lots of romantasy books that are really quite popular now amongst women as well.
Not lit.
Yeah, yes. I love it. I'm like, get it wherever you can.
Yeah.
So 50 Shades of Grey has a lot to answer for, but thankfully there's better written romantasy smut out there.
So there's work to be done, is what you're telling me.
Always work to be done, but little by little.
And enjoy the process.
Enjoy the process, yeah. And even if it's not 100% satisfying all the time, you can still learn from it and maybe use that to communicate with yourself and your partners going forward then as well.
Can we talk about your book?
Yes. My little baby.
Flat out writing, flat out. Tell me all about it.
So my book is called Wrong Women, and it's looking at the lives of the women that actually lived around the corner from this podcast studio in Monto, which was Ireland's biggest red light district from 1860s to 1925. And the women there lived horrific lives a lot of the time. Some of them got really rich. They became madams. They serviced half of Dublin and the British Army, it seems. And there's a lot of like class, and, you know, there are a lot of working class women there as well. So class really comes into it. But the good news is my book has been shortlisted for the AMPOS Book Awards in the history category. So my little baby is out there in the world
How does that feel?
It's incredible. It's just like, it feels so lovely for me, but it also feels so lovely for the women and girls of Monto that they did have really hard lives. And I think they need to be remembered ethically, and remember that they weren't just like dead prostitutes or, you know, diseased brazzers was one of the terms that was used about them. They played a massive role in shaping Irish culture, Irish society, and they had lots of resistance and rebellion against those norms as well. So it's really nice to be able to bring more awareness of those women and to look at, okay, well, how do we make things better for people who are doing that nowadays? And how do we fight back against those pressures on women, like to be the good woman who doesn't have casual sex or doesn't look at porn or doesn't think of themselves. They only think of reproduction and married sex. So all those pressures about, you know, the good body and the good woman, I think it's really important to shine any kind of light on that. So it's really exciting, and all those nights staying up till 5 a.m. riding with my dog on my lap were so worth it. A joy.
Well, congratulations. Can people vote?
They can, yeah. They can just, it's a public vote until 22nd of November. Okay. So please do vote.
Well, best of luck. You're a busy, busy woman. Caroline, thank you so much for the chat. It was really insightful, really educational. We really appreciate you. And thank you for listening. I'm Jennifer Zamparelli, and thanks. That was Just Between Us with the Irish Independent.